journalist who's written about, I think the book is called Wolf of K Street. He's bringing a lot of signed books, and he's welcome to give a lot out as well. And that's I'm really excited to actually welcome a journalist this time in our conference. We'll also have Dr. Everett Altman, who's from NYU, who's going to talk about the Z-score, not the statistics Z-score, the Z-score to predict bankruptcy of companies. And so his Z-score was used to kind of predict that Walgreens and some of these other companies that he's going to talk about were going to go bankrupt. Afterwards, we'll have a lunch and a networking. We've actually catered from Sally's, a pizza. In New Haven, we say that we have better pizza than you New Yorkers have, but we can argue all that all we want until you try Sally's, and I'm sure we won't have any arguments after that. And then afterwards, the poster competition will start at 1:30. We'll be up in Payne Whitney Gymnasium, up in the track, and we'll have all of your posters set up. And what we've done is we've welcomed about 12 to 15 graduate judges from across the disciplines to come. They're part of our graduate school, and they'll come and talk to you about your presentations, about your posters, and at the end, kind of give us this final ranking for us to kind of present in our final awards ceremony. And that being said, I hope that everybody can stay for our awards ceremony at 5:30 at the Haven Lawn Club. It's quite a posh lawn club that we've gone to this year, but we'll have a catered dinner, and then everybody will get a seat, and then we'll go through the awards. And we're very excited to announce this year that we're going to have more than $6,000 in awards that we're giving out, and so I think we did the numbers, and about 20%, 25% of all participants will get some sort of award, which is a lot. We're very excited about that. All right. So we've kind of gone through the schedule, and of course, if you have any questions, please come up to us afterwards to ask. A few things that we're going to go over. So for talks, please be respectful. A lot of these people are traveling from out of state, we've kindly welcomed them to Yale. So, this is the Yale way to welcome any speaker that we have. And the way that we're doing questions, I don't know if anybody has used Poll Everywhere. We used Poll Everywhere in my physics lecture. Not sure it's very helpful, but this is the QR code for the D.r Gendler Poll Everywhere. And so what will happen is if you submit questions on this Poll Everywhere, we have Nico, one of your team members in the back, just be looking through them. You can always upvote the Poll Everywhere questions that you think are the best. We're crowdsourcing our questions. And afterwards, please, when you're asking a question, include your name, what school you are, because Reagan, who's going to be introducing D.r Gendler, will be reading out these questions. And we're very excited. I think we saved a lot of time at the end for you all to come up to our speakers as well. They'll be here, and you're welcome to talk to them. All right. Other than that, are we missing anything in the back? We good? Okay. Are there any questions for the good of the group? Yes.
So for tomorrow, our day doesn't start into the bonus.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't have to worry about projects.
Yep. Yeah. So everybody can skip project setup, sleep in, enjoy breakfast. I saw some people getting olmo. That's our choice of breakfast spot as well. Bagels are quite nice. I'm not sure how they compare to New York bagels, but okay. If that's it in terms of information, please, we'll do like a quick icebreaker. I know that everybody sat with like people that didn't know across from them, so everybody turn to the person in front of you. Back rows turn. The first row turn backwards. Top row. Oh, well then, how about this? We'll just scramble. Everybody get up and sit in a different seat than you are now. Please introduce yourself to someone new. Introduce like what you're studying, what you're researching.
What's up? What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan, nice to meet you. What school do you go to?
North Carolina A&T.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
How do you like it there?
Oh, I really enjoy it.
Enjoy it?
I'm a senior, so.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Where do you go?
kind of like clocked out. I'm at NYU.
Oh, okay. actually applied there for graduate school.
Oh, really? How'd it go? Did they get back to you?
I'm still waiting for a reply. But,
I gotcha.
yeah. So how do you like it there?
I fucking love it.
Really?
I love it, bro. It's honestly probably the best decision I've made.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you from the area? Or?
No, I am from California.
Oh, so it's
Yeah.
across the country.
It's way across. It's very different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Are you from North Carolina?
No, I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Do you like that area, like Raleigh, all that stuff?
Yeah, I do. I'm in Greensboro, so that's actually like an hour out from Raleigh. So it's like a very small, homey.
Oh no, I got you.
But it's like a favorite college town.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a perfect college town?
Definitely like close proximity to everything you need as far as like food, groceries. Like for us, everything is like 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very great. And then obviously the yeah. So what's your what are you studying?
I'm studying urban design architecture.
Oh, really?
How about you? What are you studying?
Bioengineering.
Bioengineering. Damn. Okay.
I actually have a friend that went to University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Studying architecture.
Architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I got you.
So how does that look? Is that something that you're looking forward to?
Oh, it's completely different because I'm gonna go into law. So I'm also applying to like law schools, similar to like graduate. Yeah. So figuring that stuff out.
Okay, so how does architecture and industrial
You meld it together with like the concentration, right? So I'm thinking of doing like more of like property law. So that's why I was like, oh, you could like bring it together, right? I don't know yet. It's too unsure. And for bioengineering, like graduate school, are you planning on going further after that, like PhD?
Yeah, I'm thinking PhD for
Yeah.
sure. I'm interested in the field of medicine.
Exactly.
Drug delivery, so
Yeah.
I think a PhD is like a great step
Yeah. No, exactly. Because I feel like there's a lot of future in this field in particular, right?
Yeah.
Especially with like the, what is it called, the med tech.
Yeah.
There's like just so much money.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you end up checking in like last night? Did you come here?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
And then checked in. It's a moment, it's a ready spot.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it.
What about you? Did you?
No, I literally just got here. So I was, I don't know, man. But how was the experience? Was it worth it? Was it fun?
It's something.
It's something?
Yeah.
Nothing. No, I didn't see anything.
When you do come back,
Maybe we'll be staying nearby, or is it? How does it work?
well, I guess they have like all kind of said in the freshman dorm.
No, I got you.
Yeah, so you're kind of like
Oh, you're rooming with somebody. Okay. Do you like your roommates?
oh, my host is really nice.
Your hostess job?
Really good person.
Yeah.
He might be first time.
Oh. Okay. I did not bring anything. I did not bring anything. Yeah. I got you. What do you like to do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies?
I'm a drummer.
You drum.
Yeah, I play drums. So I school basketball.
You have a set?
Yeah. So I have a set at home.
Yeah.
I don't have a set in North Carolina, but I've been playing since I was like 3 years old.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of my hobbies.
I got you. That's a good hobby.
What about you?
For me, I like art a lot. Like I go to museums a lot. I'm like a big avid go to art stuff, galleries, stuff like that.
I'm sure New York has a lot of
Oh, so much, right? That's one of the reasons why I decided to move there because there's so much art,
Oh, really?
right? Do you have a favorite, what type of drumming, in genre do you listen to?
I started playing gospel.
Oh, gospel, gosh.
But then my teacher actually jazz professor.
Okay.
Alright. Fusion a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pretty much connect really nicely. So, I enjoy it.
I would imagine that jazz and gospel would meld together really well, right? Sounds like a good combination.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy a lot of that, learning different things.
Have you done the rock stuff, the hard rock stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
tried
have,
it?
yeah, definitely in high school.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's fun.
Yeah, my friends from high school play guitar. Yeah, like a little mini band going.
Yeah, I got you. Me, I really like abstract art, so I'm just really into like line art, like using a pencil and just like going wherever you can. But it's like strange stuff. But I think otherwise, I just like looking at the art. I'm not the greatest artist myself.
Okay, I was about to say,
Do you have any photos?
Do you?
Yeah, I mean I have photos, but they're like embarrassing. So I'm like, okay. Yeah, you gotta show me. Yeah, I'm a little art shy.
No, you're good.
Not for sure. So honestly, if you pull up to NYU for grads, hit me up sometime.
Okay.
Yeah. It was fun.
What's your major again?
What's your name? I was in New York in December.
Yeah, I got you.
During Christmas. A huge place.
Yeah.
Really scraped Manhattan.
Oh no, I got you. Yeah, it's a good place to go. Did you visit any of the bars?
No, I'm not much of a
Oh, okay. No, I got you.
Is there any that you particularly?
I just like going to like jazz clubs, right? So those are a lot of fun. And then I think I really enjoy cocktail bars. I'm not like a big like go and party guy, but I like aesthetics, like vibes. That's also a lot of fun. Nah, for sure.
We got some art. Oh, we did go. I was in Houston, Texas. That's where I went.
Yeah. I think we go to find something. Yeah. It's like line art, right? It's like
okay.
lines.
So is it like only one continuous line?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is fine.
Yeah. I'll be over there. Yeah, I was sitting over there, but I was in my room.
Oh yes. Wait, those are really sick. Oh my god. Where was this?
This is Houston. I think it's the Houston Museum of
You went to Houston. Yeah, this is so nice. It's like it gets you thinking. That's the great part about art.
This is like this painting.
Yes. I do this. Yeah.
I don't know the artist, but like it's like maps laid out, and it's like
Yeah, that's exactly the type of stuff I like.
Really?
Oh, it's I
yeah.
really like the texture.
Yeah.
There's a lot of texture.
I saw this. There's a museum in Minnesota that had the same artist.
Yeah.
I was like, it's the same artist. It's crazy.
No, that's sick, bro. Yeah. Julie. Oh, my eyes are so bad. I can't read it. Gotcha. Wow. That's sick.
My favorite colors,
Yeah? What is it?
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah. Nah, you're chill. I like that.
It looked like an Apple Watch to me, but it was actually like an ancient
Well, I can
bracelet
see it.
with like a picture of like,
Yeah. That doesn't look too old. It looks like.
What do you think?
You know that kind of looks like a building at Columbia.
Oh, for real?
Oh yeah. But they like 1800? 1800? I don't know.
Okay. Like I saw, I was like, this reminds me of an Apple Watch.
Yeah, that's it. Kind of does. Yeah, you gotta add me up.
Oh, for sure. You got LinkedIn, we get that too.
Oh, bro. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I'm good.
I'm Lance, man.
Nice to meet you, Ryan. Yeah. Have you met anyone from my school? Yeah or no?
NYU?
Yeah.
No, I think you're the first one.
I'm the first one from my school.
Is there other people you know?
No, I thought I'd be like there'd be a lot of people from New York. Because this guy was like New York. So yeah. Oh, they're so weird. How do you get that? That's weird.
Probably see some people here.
Oh, there's kids. There's other kids from our school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wait, there's nobody from our school.
For real?
Oh my god.
You're like probably the closest.
Whoa, New York is so close.
How did you find out about that?
Online.
Oh, okay.
Scrolling around.
Okay.
Look at this in Columbia. Wow. Okay.
You the only one?
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Oh
Man.
my goodness.
That's crazy. Wait, I gotta get you on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
too.
that's right.
Yeah.
I said I couldn't be with
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't give me that QR code. I hate that QR code.
Oh yeah, no.
I know, that's why I'm scared.
Do you go to a lot of like conferences like this?
I've been to a few. I was at a conference last month in Virginia.
Okay.
It was for Lockheed Martin.
Yeah. Hey, you're on top of your stuff. I feel like I'm only able to like get to these conferences like once in a while. It's like a lot of energy to like travel.
Oh yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely tedious. But I've been fortunate enough. I think there's a scholarship that I can receive for
Yeah. That's
You
amazing.
gotta really look for stuff opportunities. But yeah,
I got you.
nice meeting you. I'll probably go float around.
I'll see you around.
Yes, that's
All
it.
What's your reason? Oh, you didn't know. So you're like one of the closest people to me. Yeah, I haven't met any. Well, I just got here, right? But I haven't met anyone that's from New York as well. Yeah. Did you grow up in New York? Oh, okay. You're from trying to work with it. Oh my god. Do you have a favorite part in Shanghai? Like, celebration?
I don't know if I want to do that.
How about you, what's your concentration? Like, what's your favorite topic? Cancer. Okay. What type of like cells or cancer stuff are you looking at?
Yeah, I don't know what it entails.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. My sister also does cancer research. She goes to Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
She doesn't educate me much about it. All I know is that she thinks I'm something alpha or whatever. I don't know. But What year? I'm a senior. How did you find out about that? Do you guys have opportunities to like network and people Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I get Yo, what's up? What's your name?
Jonah.
Nice to meet you. Ryan? What school do you guys go to?
I'm both from Stevens.
From Stevens. Wait, in New York?
Yeah.
I'm at NYU.
Wait, you guys from NYU?
Yeah.
Wait, you know Frank? Sasuke.
No, he's Cornell. I'm NYU. Yeah. No, but I was like excited because
You're the one person from NYU that I saw like on
Yeah, because I literally didn't get that list. Like I just got here like 20 minutes ago.
Wait, how did you get it? Like by train?
Yeah. Wait, no, I
you guys
didn't.
leave?
I did bus. I left at like
This is crazy.
I left at 7 a.m. this morning. How about you guys? What's up?
We left at like
What bus did you take?
Oh yeah. I took the Fixie bus. You know what that is?
Yeah.
You've taken it before?
I was debating whether to take a train or a bus.
we left at we left campus at 9. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wait, you guys just got here as well?
No.
I'm here yesterday.
Oh, left at 9 yesterday.
9 yesterday.
And then you
I
got.
had a midterm at 9.
Oh.
Back to CP
No,
back?
we left at 10. Yeah, right after a midterm.
Yeah, damn. No, I've heard stories. These guys have been telling me, they're like, yo, like, you like sleep on a couch,
I
or
slept in a fucking seat.
you slept in a
Dude, I expected an orientation, dude.
Yeah,
I expected something else.
damn. Are you guys having a good time, though?
Wait,
It's a good time.
kinda.
I thought food was included too. But
It's all included?
I think only one thing was included.
Dude, I don't know anything. I'm so unprepared. I have, like,
Wait, who are you presenting on?
me, I'm doing, like, coastal island protection,
It's not
erosion.
medicine. What field? Engineering?
Environmental science. Yeah. How about you guys? You guys
Medicine, yeah.
Medicine?
Yeah, we're both engineers. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
okay.
like medical engineering, kind of.
Yeah. I fuck with that. Wait, where's Stevens?
You know, like near Hoboken, like right across.
Hoboken.
It's across the river.
Okay. I got you guys. Do you guys visit the city?
You know, like when what's that called? When NYU, like the Tamil School of Engineering was like still being built, like they had like the engineering school in our university.
I got you. Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Now that we've gotten to know each other, let's take a seat because I think D.r Gendler is ready for us. So, hold on, before everybody gets seated, let's try to fill the rows for D.r Gendler. Let's go start from the third row and just like shoulder to shoulder. Just so we can like seem like one nice happy family. And I forgot to introduce myself again. I'm Zihan. I'm the director of the Yale Director Research Conference. I've been the director since my first year, so it's been really nice to watch this conference really grow to what it was before I got here. And I'm really excited for this team that we have because we're going to do a lot of great things. So, let's fill in the space. It's really good. Thank you, everybody, for contributing. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Reagan, a team member, and she's going to introduce Dean Gendler for everybody, and then afterwards we'll go straight into our first talk of the night. The day. Reagan's coming. Yeah, Reagan's coming. And it was very exciting to see everybody exchange information. Again, once you're a participant, always you're a participant. We'll make a LinkedIn group for everybody to join. We have a pretty big alumni from years past too, so you can always converse with them. And then we'll set up that. Also, if you have any pictures of these 2 days you want to post on Instagram, just tag us at Yale Research Conference and post your pictures on our site as well. Get some publicity done. All right, Reagan, you ready?
Yes.
Fantastic. Ready, take it away.
Thank you so much. Welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Yale Undergraduate Research Conference. It is my absolute pleasure to open this year's symposium by introducing our first keynote speaker, Dr. Tamar Gendler. Dr. Gendler is the Vincent J. Scully Professor of Philosophy here at Yale, with secondary appointments in psychology and cognitive sciences. She recently completed a decade-long term as the inaugural Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, where she played a key role in shaping the direction of interdisciplinary research and education at Yale. Dr. Gendler's academic journey began not far from when many of us are sitting. She earned her undergraduate degree at Yale, majoring in humanities and in mathematics and philosophy. She then went on to complete her PhD in philosophy at Harvard, and since then her research has brought together ideas from philosophy, psychology, and cognitive science to explore how imagination, intuition, and belief shape the way we think, reason, and act. One of the most compelling aspects of Dr. Gendler's work is the way she asks and answers questions that lie between disciplines. How do we reason when logic alone won't suffice? What role does imagination play in shaping our beliefs? These are just a few of the questions she explores through her writing. Her concept of Alief, a term she coined to describe those gut-level responses that diverge from our conscious beliefs, entered the vocabulary of both philosophers and psychologists. And in works like Thought Experiments and Intuition, Imagination, and Philosophical Methodology, she doesn't just investigate how we think, she invites us to think differently. Her writing models the kind of intellectual risk-taking and synthesis that this conference hopes to inspire. In addition to her scholarly impact, Dr. Gendler has also been a leader in shaping the academic community itself. She was the first woman to chair Yale's philosophy department, an important milestone that continues to inspire students and scholars alike. Her commitment to inclusive and interdisciplinary education has left a long-lasting mark on this university. And that's precisely why we're so honored to have her as our opening keynote speaker. This conference is about more than presenting data or results. It's about exploring how we ask questions, how we draw connections between fields, and how we expand the boundaries of what research can be. Dr. Gendler's work does all of that. She bridges philosophy and psychology, imagination and analysis, tradition and innovation. In doing so, she exemplifies the kind of bold, integrative thinking that we hope this conference will encourage in all of us. Please join me in welcoming the 2025 Humanities keynote speaker, Dr. Gendler.
Thank you so much, and what a generous introduction. I'm assuming that my slides are up here and that if I advance, we will get to them. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to do this, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being individuals who are interested in making discoveries about the world and in finding things out that were previously unavailable to us as a community of human beings, and thinking about then how would you transmit that work to others. So what I want to do with the talk I'm going to give to you today is a bunch of things at different layers all the way through. This is a talk about how we should think about artificial intelligence that I ordinarily give to groups of adults. I give it to trustees of universities, or I give it to school boards, or sometimes I give it to groups of adults in an adult education setting. So it's about how you transmit ideas to an audience that might not obviously find something scholarly interesting. So what I'm going to do during this talk, because I'm giving it to you all and not to a group of mere adults, is very often I'm going to sort of step across the fourth wall and say to you, hi, notice what I'm doing here as I present this. So that's a bit of backdrop with regard to how I'm going to present this, which is sometimes I'll be in character, hi, this is me giving a talk, and sometimes I'll just step away from that and I'll say, hello, future presenters of ideas to the world. Notice the way in which this thing happens. So I want you to think both about the content and about the craft. The second thing is that I have been spending this semester, I'm on leave from Yale, I've been spending this semester in Palo Alto, California. I'm embedded at a place called the Stanford Center for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, and also at a research institute called the Center for Advanced Studies in Behavioral Sciences. What that means is that I am seeing a set of questions which I had approached from the perspective of this very wonderful university, where, as you heard, I was an undergraduate and where I've spent most of my career. But what I am doing is approaching these questions from the perspective of a very different set of assumptions about the world. And the fact that you are at this conference tells me that you are already curious, that you are already to think about how do they do research on my campus, how do they do research on another campus, what's common, what's different. But the degree to which even the 8 weeks that I have been out there have introduced to me a whole set of fresh thoughts convinces me that one of the things I want to say to you is whatever you do, get yourself to other places that are thinking about the questions you care about, because recognizing what is idiosyncratic about the approach that you have been provided with will open up for you new insights about your home techniques, even if you don't move to doing anything new. All right, so that's my background and preface. I'll talk for some number of minutes and then we'll open for questions. If you have something incredibly pressing and urgent to ask, raise your hand, because we're a community, right? I'm in here giving a presentation to people who are themselves going to be giving presentations, which is what you're here for. That said, I'll move along unless I see a hand in the air and try to explain to you what the issue is. So I want to ask the question, and the talk is about it. How transformative is artificial intelligence? And what I like to do when I'm making a presentation to a public audience is to start by making the topic feel relevant to them. So the issue of artificial intelligence is, as you know, at the front of conversations. There are questions about the nature of consciousness. There are questions about the role that it plays in schools. There's questions about the interaction between AI and all sorts of institutional processes we've put in place. There's concerns that are raised about the way in which we can trust information. There's questions about the effects in domain after domain after domain. And one of the things that's important is this is a question that is of interest to everybody. It's there in intellectual places like the Harvard Business Review, it's there in the MIT Technology Review, it's in the New York Times, it's in Politico, it's in the Washington Post, it's in USA Today. Everybody is thinking about this question. And what we can do as scholars is to take something that feels pretty inchoate and try to systematize it. So there's 40 different questions up here if you were to unpack them. And what I want to do is to frame the big picture concerns and then give a very specific way of addressing it. So there are a pair of ways that underpin everything you see here of thinking about the power of this new technology. The first is a response that what AI does is terrifying, and examples are the ways in which privacy can be invaded. It changes warfare, it changes work, it produces various kinds of art, it eliminates the need for writing. But exactly those, notice, we didn't change the slide, we just changed the interpretation. Exactly those phenomena. How wonderful, things can be delivered to remote areas. How fantastic, wars can be fought without putting people at risk. Well, I mean, wars cannot be fought without putting people at risk. Parts of wars can be carried out in ways that involve autonomous vehicles, or the ways in which art can allow you to experience beauty even if a human creator isn't there to do it. Likewise, there are concerns that though AI can do all of these kinds of things, it can do robotic work, it can produce essays, it can't produce something as powerful as the greatest music. It doesn't have imagination. It isn't capable of love, doesn't feel emotions, it doesn't produce literature that is different. Or maybe the interpretation of that is that it's not a big deal in the way that it has been claimed, because these are the things that it can't do. Okay, so that's a way of framing and a reminder that very often you can help people think about a problem by presenting information and then just putting two frames around it and having them recognize that the same thing that they think about terror and thrillingness can be illustrated by the same examples. All right, the question I want to ask is the transformation that AI seems to be bringing about sort of like a small earthquake that makes a break in the road? Or is it like the big earthquake in my favorite movie ever? How many people have seen 2012? 2012, great disaster movie. Guys, how many have seen Independence Day? Okay, wow. How many of you have, so what's with you? You don't love disaster movies? They're so great. The world is getting destroyed. And then there's a small group of capable, competent people who have scientific knowledge, and they sit in an office, and with their scientific knowledge, they prevent the world from falling apart. And it's like, it's you guys as the heroes, right? Even like think the Jeff Goldblum character in Jurassic Park, right? Or the smart guy in Jaws, right? Scientists win the day in disaster movies. 2012 is one of the great disaster movies. Okay, the point of this is not that 2012 is a great disaster movie, though it is. The point is I want to draw a contrast. Is this a revolution like a little crack in the ground? Is this a revolution like 2012 when California falls into the sea? Or is this the entire world exploding? Okay, so how do you ask the question, is this a crack in the ground? Is this falling into the sea, or is this the world exploding? Well, I would say this middle category, the California falling into the sea, is something that we've seen 3 times. We've seen it 3 times in the agricultural revolution, in the industrial revolution, and in the information revolution. And the time scales on these are pretty different. The agricultural revolution was like 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, thousands and thousands of years ago. The Industrial Revolution was a matter of centuries. The Information Revolution was a matter of decades. Gosh, it would be unbelievable if the 4th thing that's as big as those was only years. That said, it could be, right? I'm not going to make a prediction. Maybe this was a curve that was just going up, and the next, after the AI revolution, the scary thing after that's going to take hours, and the one after that's going to take seconds, and then you won't even notice. Who knows? But it is at least prima facie reason to think, prima facie means on the surface, it is prima facie reason to think that these kinds of things don't come around very often, when you realize that what I mean by the 4th category, the 3rd category of California falling into the sea, is the kind of thing that's only happened 3 times. So what I want to ask is, we have now framed a question, right? We're asking, we took those newspaper clips and we said, everybody's worried about AI. And we said, here's some examples of places where people are worried about it, and here's how you can make a gestalt shift on the same concept by giving a different perspective. And then I said, here's how I want to frame the question. And I said, there's these 3 big revolutions. Is AI like that? And now what I want to do is to give you some criteria by which we measure whether something is like a 2012 California earthquake. And I want to talk about what I think are the 3 macro domains that determine what human life in the big sense is like. And part of this is just to remind you that even if you're working on a very, very small part of human knowledge, even if you're working in a bench wet lab that's focused on a very specific question, that fits into a set of concerns that are about understanding the world. And the world affects people primarily in 3 ways. It affects us personally and interpersonally. How do we live as individuals and in community with others? It affects us institutionally. What are the macroscopic social structures that shape our lives, nations, religions, educational systems, political outlooks, various views that we have of the world that are sustained through crazy institutional things like money, things that human beings make up, agree to pretend are real, and thereby become real. And the third thing that really transforms, and I'll show you how it transforms in each of these 3, is for better or worse, human beings are interested not just in animal, interpersonal, interhuman, interspecies interactions, right? We as animals are concerned with conspecifics, we're concerned with how we live with other beings, but perhaps distinct among humans, spiritual and aesthetic concerns are shaped by the global surroundings in which we find ourselves. And turn out, if you look at what drives the institutional structures that we find around us, I'd ask you all to think about this country right now. The political structures that this country embodies are largely shaped by profound beliefs that people have about what it is for human beings to thrive in the conditions under which that's possible, and what it is to live a life of truth and beauty and value that recognizes the world. And so a lot of what feels like the ground level practical stuff, everything about your lives is shaped by the regulatory structures in which you find yourself. Everything in your lives is shaped by the political systems that form the infrastructure of the world in which you exist. And those things, because they are human projects, are profoundly shaped by personal and interpersonal desires and by spiritual and aesthetic beliefs. All right, so what question? Sir, tell me your name.
My name is Anthony Ross.
Anthony
I'm a
Ross.
senior biology major at Morehouse College.
Excellent.
My question was, considering that institutional values change over the span of decades, like medicine in itself is ever changing, we're always finding new empirical data, how are we going to incorporate AI into something that's ever changing?
Absolutely excellent question. So let me say this by way of response, which is, what I want to do right now is frame the question. When I introduce what AI is and how I see it relating to these other revolutions, I want you to raise your hand again. I will call on you a second time, and we will take your question. But thank you. It's a beautiful question, and biology is a great major. And thank you for coming all the way up to New Haven. All right. So I want to, these are the topics we're interested in. How does it affect things personally and interpersonally, things like family and friendships, broader social networks? How does it affect things institutional? How does it affect health, education, labor, governance, global politics, etc.? How does it affect us spiritually, art, nature, religion, morality? Okay, and I want to run through these three big revolutions and give you a sense of what it's like when the world changes. I am assuming that because many of you are majoring in the sciences, that your chance to think about history, your chance to think about social change, took place largely before you got to college. I'm also assuming that some of you are here as historians. So remark, very often you're speaking to an audience with a wide range of knowledge. And what you need to do is introduce the fundamental terms early on so that as you go on to say something subtle, the people who are approaching it for the first time don't get lost. So I am going to start by just reminding or telling you some things about the agricultural revolution. So how did it affect the three big categories? So the agricultural revolution, which began about 10,000, 12,000 years ago and lasted for a while, brought the human population from less than 10 million human beings, to about 250 million human beings. And the big change that the agricultural revolution brought about is that rather than being nomadic, rather than being foragers, rather than being hunters who roughly relied on their interaction with a world that they did not shape or create, what the agricultural revolution allowed people to do is to come to transform the space in which they lived so that they were not required to respond to the world. The world was in some way responding to them. This is, in a sort of child development framework, like the moment where you discover agency. Roughly before that, the world was a given, and human beings walked around sporadically, interacting with parts of it. What the agricultural revolution really introduced was the capacity to view the world as shapeable, and the consequent transformation of the ways in which human beings as individuals and in community lived together, worked cooperatively in interacting with the world that they shaped. Pretty much everything that for you defines cohabitation with other human beings did not exist for your ancestors more than 10,000 years ago. Homes became possible. Lived communities became possible. Perhaps even more than that, what we call imagined communities became possible. It started to make sense to think there is a group of individuals with whom I am in repeated and consistent contact, and that group of individuals extends beyond the size of a small band. That's an incredible transformation. Likewise, it is enormously difficult to build the kind of social structures, hierarchies, governmental structures in a nomadic setting. Almost all of what we think of as human organizational structures come about as the result of the transformation in roughly how do you get energy from the sun and put the energy in your body. Literally, that's right. Just to remind you, right, what's our human problem? Our human problem is there's a bunch of energy from the sun, comes down to earth, photosynthesis transforms it into certain kinds of nutrients, then creatures who are self-moving run around and consume those nutrients, and then we, who are creatures who are self-moving, run around and consume either the nutrients that the other self-moving creatures consumed or the nutrients that the growing up from the ground creatures created. And all of that is energy that has come into the system. We're just, and we put the energy into the body to support the brain, whose job it is to support the body, whose job it is to support the brain. All right, so just a reminder, like we are, in the end, physical objects. So what an amazing thing to discover, in some sense, the energy storage system that agriculture is, right? agriculture is a technology. Agriculture says, I have a new way of getting the energy from the sun to give to my body, to give to my brain. And the way in which I am able to do that is by the cultivation of the soil in a way that I have predictably present to me crops that will allow me to blah, blah, blah. And as a result, I can start keeping myself in the same place. And as a result, I can start being surrounded by others who are in the same place. And as a result, we, as a community, can start interacting in the ways that our primate psychology causes us to interact, and we can create systems and structures, and then we can start to go beyond that. The third thing that happens, right, and that's already like really huge. So when I say like the earthquake, right, this is what I mean. Like when I'm saying is AI this big, I mean is AI as big as going from not being roughly cultured beings with a sense of self and place to being like after the agricultural revolution. If you were not much writing, but if you were to read a story of the life of somebody during the agricultural revolution, many things would make sense, right? If they were posting on Insta, you would know why they were doing what they were doing during the day. That's pretty amazing. It's a long time ago. Okay, here's what else it gives you. It gives you the capacity to think about a future, the planning that goes into agriculture, right? So think about the difference between agriculture and hunting with regard to the moment that you put in the effort and the moment that you receive the award from your effort. Even if you're an incredibly patient hunter, even if what you do is you set up traps in the woods and you go back a week later to see what you've trapped, you are tangibly interacting with something that's very, very proximate. One of the crazy, I want you to think about this, one of the crazy, amazing things about agriculture is that you're doing something in the spring that's not going to have results until the fall. And as you cultivate the soil, you may be doing something in 1 year that isn't going to have effects for dozens of years. The notion that the future is something with regard to which you have control is perhaps even more important than the recognition that your spatial surroundings are something with regard to which you have control. That the capacity to get things, let me finish these, record keeping and divinity, and then I will take it. In addition, I remarked, we don't know much about the time before this. We don't know much about the time before this because the degree to which records were kept are accidental. Roughly speaking, they come from archaeology. They come from a non-deliberate attempt to leave behind evidence. But there is no sense until the agricultural revolution that the ambition of creating structured evidence that is thinking about the fact that your future self or your successor will not have the same information that you do. Notice what an unbelievable insight it is to realize that you could do record keeping, right? To realize that on the basis of some transformation that you make to the world, that information could be transmitted to a different time or place or mind. That's wild, right? And I want you to feel how powerful that is. And I want you to feel it already in the agricultural revolution. Because when we get to the moment that we're thinking about AI, I want us to think about whether what we are confronting is an extension of these fundamental insights or something radically different. Finally, you get in the agricultural revolution a conception of a world beyond the mundane. There is no world society that doesn't structure itself with regard to some conception of the divine, some conception of the supernatural, some conception of the magical, some conception of the aesthetic, and 100% of human societies create rituals to deal with that. Question?
Burhan.
Hi,
I'm from Rutgers University.
Wonderful.
So, something that you said during this slide particularly was really compelling for one of your last slides. And in that, you said that like agriculture, for example, you plant in the spring and you can only harvest in the fall. Do you think the nature of what's being innovated here, which is like techniques to agriculture, is the reason that describes like how long it took for this revolution to take place?
It's a really good question. So one question is, here's a way of phrasing your question. Does each of the revolutions that I'm going to describe, next will be industrial, next will be information, does each of the revolutions that I've described make it more likely that the next revolution will take less time than that one did? I think that's a really interesting hypothesis. I mean, unfortunately, human history runs once, or unfortunately or fortunately, non-adverbially, without judgment or evaluation. Human history runs once. I cannot know with certainty the answer to the question. I think that's a really cool hypothesis. And one of the things to think about as we run through these next slides is, what is it about the tools that each revolution gives you that prefigures what the next revolution is going to include, and that makes it more likely that that revolution will take less time for the community as a whole to come upon it? Awesome, awesome question. All right, so that's the Industrial Revolution. That's the Agricultural Revolution. And now let me remind you, right, we had these three things we were going to think about: personal and interpersonal, institutional, aesthetic, and spiritual, right? So all of these things are already, by the time of the Agricultural Revolution, the fundamental questions which concern us as human beings. How do we express love? What role does loyalty as opposed to egalitarian interpersonal universalism? What role does loyalty, what role does in-group as opposed to out-group play, and what are our human obligations to those to whom we're connected as opposed to those to whom we're not, right? There's the love version of it, there's the loyalty version of it, there's the care version of it, there's the justice version of it, and there's the fairness version of it. Reminder, these are in order of intensity, and in general, it is the case in every society that the number of people you love is smaller than the number of people to whom you're loyal, which is smaller than the number of people for whom you care, which is smaller than the number of people to whom you are just in the sense of applying your personal legal code, which is smaller than the number of people to whom you are, in the broadest sense, fair. That is, you don't wish malice upon them. So, that's crazy human universal. That's actually really wild, that's the structure of things, and it makes these intermediate categories like loyal, right? I mean, you can imagine a world with love and fairness, right? You're special or you're not special, and those are the two ways we have of interacting. The combinatoric stability that loyalty and care and justice introduce is actually a really interesting fact about how humans do stuff. That's just a cool fact about the world. All right, institutionally, all of a sudden you start confronting questions about the distribution of those three things. I think are preconditions for flourishing, right? Health, education, and labor are the three things that are required to live a life where you are positioned to be an autonomous decision maker who understands your desires and has the capacity to fulfill them. And you're pretty much unable to do it without that trio, where labor is developing the capacity to transform the world in keeping with your will. That's what labor is. I mean, and you might do it by screwing toothpaste lids onto toothpaste tubes, as Charlie Bucket's father did. Have you guys read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Oh man, all right, somebody's got to give me a whole bunch of cultural references so that I can speak to my audience. There's some book that you've read where somebody has a job that seems silly. That job is about having the agency to transform the world in keeping with your will, right? Whatever you do in your job, you're a bulldozer driver. Your job then is to clear the road, and that's to clear the part of the road that's in front of your bulldozer, and not the part of the road that's not in front of your bulldozer. Labor is transforming the world in keeping with your will. It's an amazing thing that we're all able to labor. It's why Sabbaths are moments where you're not supposed to labor, right? Because you're not supposed to be willing and you're not supposed to be transforming the world. Okay, so other institutional questions that arise. What's the structure and the content of governance, right? You get the beginnings of thinking how human beings work together. And aesthetically and spiritually, already agricultural revolution, a set of questions about the creation and appreciation of art and of nature, that is, what does the aesthetic look like, and a sense of responsibility to whatever the divine object is in that particular cultural configuration, and very often, particularly prior to the monotheistic revolution, which takes place about 2,000 years ago, almost all conceptions of the divinity are what we would today call polytheistic. They view the world as being filled with sentient, non-human beings. And the innovation that right now takes up about a third of the people in the world through Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, the innovation of monotheism is actually quite late in human development. It came, as our calendar conventions suggest, roughly 2,000 years ago. All right, so that was the agricultural revolution. So let me just pause and make a meta remark. So I went more slowly through agricultural revolution because I was teaching you two things. I was teaching you about the agricultural revolution, and I was teaching about the framework that I'm going to use to evaluate the other two revolutions, and then we're going to get to the AAR part. The other thing I did is, I know, you don't know, but I know what I'm going to say in the rest of this lecture. So I set up a bunch of things that I'm going to show to be either continuous or contrasting that I think allow us cleanly to understand the ways in which these are similar and different. So when you are thinking about making a presentation for each segment of it, think, what work is this doing in my interaction with the audience? What am I trying to help them come to recognize? What am I trying to help them come to feel curious about? What am I trying to help them realize is a frame through which they can approach not just this, but other things of interest to them. So I went pretty slowly through agriculture, and I'm going to go faster through the Industrial Revolution, but let me pause and just check whether anybody has a question or a meta question about the presentation. All right, oh my goodness, the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so you guys, I think, learned about this in high school, right? This is just to remind you, like the 1700s and the 1800s, and it's particularly in American high schools. I assume most, I'm not going to make you raise your hand. I assume most of you went to American high schools, and if not, that you went to international schools because you're in university in America and in the English language program. So you were probably introduced to the Industrial Revolution in its European form. I'm going to talk about the Industrial Revolution in its European form because it doesn't, I can make the point that way, and I know a lot more about Europe than I do about the rest of the world because I grew up a long time before you guys when American schools taught us about this continent, well, the middle of this continent and the one across the Atlantic at our latitude. Okay, so first of all, like, crazy population explosion. We go from 500 million people to 1.6 billion people, but notice this is not quite of the scale of either agricultural or by the time we get to information revolution. Okay, the big change is basically what you get is a progressive increase in the concentration of people in a single space, right? So agriculture basically takes you from small bands wandering around the world with really cool bows and arrows and spears and whatever else they have to living in sort of societies of 1,000-ish people, right? It's what you want to know is order of magnitude 3 to 4 digit sized communities. This makes it all of a sudden possible to live in 6, even 7 digit sized communities, right? Hundreds of thousands, even millions of people live together in something that is roughly a closed ecosystem, right? So how do we define a city? Same way we define an organism, there's a certain set of homeostatic properties that apply across the parts and they mutually reinforce, right? A city only needs 2 whatever. It only needs 2 opera houses, and so how do you differentiate where a city is? Because it only has one each to each of these things that are homeostatically necessary. Okay, so you get rural and urban. And the second thing you get, oh my God, does this transform the world? And in particular, this part of the world, which was very sparsely populated at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. You get emigration and immigration. So all of a sudden you go from relatively closed systems. There is, prior to the Industrial Revolution, a certain amount of emigration and immigration. Right there is the age of explorers. People go around on boats and take stuff from other people or move in or discover that silk is really cool. And there's trade. I mean, the Silk Road is bringing things across the world, spices, right? All the things that before the Industrial Revolution that you would, like anything you would see in the movie Troy, right? That's from before the Industrial Revolution. Anything in Greece and Rome and all the Middle Ages stuff, right? That's all pre-Industrial Revolution. But roughly speaking, like a big move is like you go from Pisa to Rome, right? I mean, you move across Italian cities. You do not regularly have large groups of people, Quaid groups, crossing oceans and moving with the kind of societal mixing that comes from emigration and immigration. And the reason for that is the way in which the industry requires movement of people. You do, of course, in the 200 years prior to the Industrial Revolution, have a mass involuntary movement of human beings from Africa to agricultural regions around the world. But in many ways, that is the pre-Industrial Revolution. That is the industrialization of agriculture and the reconceptualization of human bodies as sources of energy, which is exactly what happens in the factory system in the Industrial Revolution. In any case, you don't have mass immigration or emigration until after about the year 1600. All right, social structures, urbanism, technology, sanitation, literacy, industrialization, these are totally new things, right? So if you were living, I mean, there's sort of versions of it. You read Plato's Republic, he talks about the city-state. You have, obviously, the beginnings of literacy 3,000-ish years ago and various versions of it. But these kinds of phenomena, that people live in urban settings, that there is a kind of rapid introduction of technology, sanitation becomes an incredibly challenging problem. Literacy becomes mass for the first time, industrialization. And with it, you get all those guys who write their books in the 19th century, like, I don't know, Karl Marx, Charles Darwin, Sigmund Freud, right? They are thinking about capital and alienation and colonialism and widening suffrage, right? We're increasing the vote. In ancient Athens, it's just the land-holding guys, and then it's sort of expanding. All these incredible conceptual changes, and the relation between them and emigration and immigration and the concentration of people in cities, and this is what historians think about. Likewise, think about the new mental representations that become possible at the moment of the Industrial Revolution. Roughly, the agricultural revolution transformed energy through biology. Transformed energy through biology. Now, of course, chemistry and physics underpin biology, and so in a certain sense, there was a knowledge of the chemistry, a little bit of knowledge of the physics. But roughly, the energy transformation of the agricultural revolution is a transformation of energy through biology. The Industrial Revolution is a transformation of energy through physics and chemistry. That's a more fundamental understanding of the structure of the world. And it is operating at a level of invisibility of property that has never been part of human understanding. That's a fantastic conceptual change. Likewise, there are markets before the Industrial Revolution. As I mentioned, there's an incredible trading system with the Silk Road even by the year 1000. You know, there's ways in which you get global interaction, but there's no system in place. There's no organizational structure of the kind that matches emigration and immigration for this made-up thing, money, that starts to play these crazy roles. The kind of tulip bulb panic, which you probably learned about in high school, where everybody all of a sudden for 6 months thinks tulip bulbs are the coolest thing on earth. It's like the first Beanie Baby. Beanie Babies aren't popular. What's a thing that's popular? Something is popular, something becomes like really trendy, and then really not, right? That still happens, even if it's not Beanie Babies or tulip bulbs. That didn't, like, let me say, when you're like wandering around the veldt with your like agricultural tribe, there's no, I mean, there might be Beanie Babies, but it's a really small group of them. These transmit across cultural boundaries, right? It's Hello Kitty shows up everywhere. Okay, you guys at least know who Hello Kitty is. Okay, so markets come to be the force which shapes interaction. And markets have a bunch of prerequisites, like markets only work with production, and markets have a bunch of consequences, like pretty much everything gets commoditized. And then we get alienation, and then we get some revolutions, and capital was the source of it. And oh my goodness, and then we have the need to get more objects, and so we go out and we colonialize, and we have the sense as a counterforce that we should have, am I running out of time? Were you raising a hand to tell me I'm running out of time? Okay, so all of this stuff is going on, and there's trade and consumption, and the world's just really different. Okay, so I'm going to run through our 3 fundamental test cases, but I just want to say, second example of what a revolution looks like. Like, after the Industrial Revolution, the world is really different than it was before the Industrial Revolution. Wherever you want to trace it to, life before 16 or 1700 looks really different than life after 1900. Just like radically and totally. And maybe the fact that the next change, the information revolution, comes soon is because this one brought us so far. All right, but let me bring us back to whether it changed the fundamental set of concerns we have. Did the Industrial Revolution change in any way this 5-stage hierarchy? Well, it expands things over to the right. That is to say, the introduction of universal suffrage, the recognition of human rights, says there are more beings to whom you owe the responsibility of justice, perhaps more beings to whom you owe the responsibility of care. But the fundamental hierarchical structure remains in place, even if there is an expansion of the imagination. What it takes to thrive: health, education, and labor, I think. That's kind of what it takes to thrive before the Industrial Revolution, and sort of what it takes to thrive after the Industrial Revolution. Likewise, there's a bunch of questions about the structure and content of governance, whose inputs change, so their outputs change, but the mechanisms by which we process those inputs, how do we organize a society in such a way that it is predictable with regard to the things that we value, right? So in an agricultural society, you're going to organize it in such a way that you have the right kind of caretaking for the crops. Post-Industrial Revolution, you're going to make things like banks, right? Because you need to be able to accumulate capital and do all those things. The structure and content of government changes, but only because the inputs change. The relation between the inputs and the outputs. Roughly, we're trying to create stability out of a chaotic system is what happens. Likewise, yes, there's different kinds of art, there's different kinds of nature. We actually become much better at destroying nature in really fast ways. But nothing fundamental about the relation between the human and the aesthetic changes, and nothing fundamental about the responsibility to divinity and other sentient beings changes, though with Darwin, right, so we're in the 19th century, you get the introduction of an answer to one of the questions that is otherwise perplexing without appeal to divine, and so you get a shift in the proportions starting in the late 19th through the 20th century. You get a shift in the proportions of individuals with education who have an attitude towards the divine that looks like what we would call secular. But that's a difference in proportions. It's not like we have new options, right? I mean, religions take form, monotheism is big and up and running by this, and you get various religions that show up even in the 20th century. But They're the same kind of stuff. They're the same kind of ritual markers of birth and death, trying to figure out that which is transcendent. Okay, so that, you see how much shorter that was than the agricultural revolution? Why? Because you already have the schema in mind, and so all I had to do was fill in for you the parts of it. Question? Hi.
I'm shooting from North Carolina A&T. I'm a art major.
Oh, an art major, awesome.
Yes, and this is a meta question.
Yeah.
I know when we first started the presentation, you spoke a little bit about the hypothesis on if previous information influences the next generation. Is that what you're doing in your presentation?
So no, let me say that was a question that I got from your friend. Remind me your name? Perhan asked me a question, which is, he said, hey, I made the point at the beginning. The first one took millennia, the second one took centuries, the third one took decades. Wouldn't it be weird if this one took years? Which was just to sort of predispose you to think about how often do these kinds of things come about. Perhan said, hey, I have a reason to think they would start coming faster. My reason to think they would start coming faster, said Pirani, is because we take ideas from the last one and we bring it to this one. So I, as the speaker, right where I am going right after this is the reunion of the Yale Debate Association. I was a debater. I am used to, debaters, yay, oh, debate. All right, go debate. So I'm going to go up to that, and what I learned as a debater is if somebody says interesting things in the course of a presentation that you have in your head, integrate them into that. So you are watching me ad-lib on the basis of something that Pirhan said that is shaping how it is that I am presenting this to you. So awesome meta question. And a reminder that every time you give a talk, you're talking to a group of actual, real human beings. I'm in a room with you. There's a reason we're doing this here and not me on some TV set. I'm living in California, right? I mean, I'm out here for a bunch of reasons, but I came here in person because I want this to be dynamic. All right, let's do the information revolution. Okay, so, oh my God, we went from 1.5 to 8 billion people. Here's what I think the big change is. Place matters both more and less than it ever has. Right? The information revolution changes your relationship between where you are and what you know. Think about this. At the time of the agricultural revolution, even at the time of the industrial revolution, the information that was available to you was roughly that which was within the sphere of direct interpersonal interaction. Yes, you could do like the lights on top of the mountains, like in Lord of the Rings. Have you guys seen Lord of the Rings? It's a movie. It's a book. It's a great book. It's a great expression of mythic human life. And one of the things they do in that, right, they have to say, like, I don't know, the orcs are coming or something. And so they put a light on a mountain, and then there's a mountain over there, and they put a light on a mountain, right? So you have small techniques for making location independent of information. You have Pony Express, and the information revolution, right? What telegraph do, and what the version of it that we all experience right now, where, you know, right now on my watch, I could call my mom. My mom, for all you know, could be listening to this. Right now she's not, but she could be, right? All of that changes the relation between place and what you know about, and between place and who you interact with, right? You could write letters, sort of, when there was a postal system, but you were not going to have an international pen pal in the North American continent from Europe before 1450. You weren't even going to have one after 1450, right? You weren't going to have that kind of interchange. You were going to have a set of experiences around you that were determined by where you found yourself sitting. That said, the complete inconsistency in the distribution of technology made place more important first order because it made it less important second order. agricultural revolution, the difference in being born in one part of the planet as opposed to another is basically weather, natural resources, right? There's a difference in your life, obviously, like do you see zebras every day, or do you see kangaroos every day, or do you see panda bears, or whatever it is that you see in the place where you are. So there are differences. But roughly, your life and the life of anybody else on the planet, the kinds of things you've experienced and the kinds of things they've experienced, setting aside, right, you've seen snow, they haven't, or you live on the ocean, they don't, they're roughly the same. Industrial revolution, all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of urbanized people whose lives are really, really different from those who live in the pre-industrialized or non-industrialized parts of the world. Human experience starts coming apart as a result of the place that you live, even as it becomes homogenized through the introduction of trade and the fact that even if you live somewhere isolated, you're likely to be interacting with manufactured products. The information revolution just makes this a whole level more extreme. All of a sudden, if you are, right, first question, are you in a part of the world where the information revolution changes your relation to information? If so, location matters more than anything else. But once you're in that domain, location matters not at all. Not at all, not at all, not at all. And so there's this very funny paradoxical structure about the relation between where you are and what your life looks like, which is that it matters both more as the first question and then less as the second question. Social structure, we get an absolute globalization, and I mean this is within my lifetime. The information revolution is roughly second half of the 20th century. So when I was an undergraduate at Yale, I wrote my senior essay on the one computer to which I had access, and I had to sign up. So I would handwrite my senior essay, and then I would go and I would type it in on the computer. And the reason it was on the computer instead of a typewriter is because that way I could have footnotes, which I thought was unbelievably cool. We used to have endnotes, because how were you going to know how big a footnote would be? Okay, so you get a total transformation in globalization, and you get big movements that are the result of technological dependence towards big movements towards democracy, big movements against democracy, right? So a bit before this, right, every 100 years or so, we seem to find ourselves as a world needing to completely reshape ourselves, right? So 1780s is a really good time for that, right? French Revolution, American Revolution, etc. 1840s is a time for that. 1935 to 45 was a really, really bad version of that, and we're at another one. But what you get are just these mass introductions of democratic movements, right? It's preceded at the end of the 18th century. French and American revolutions are in some sense predecessors, but the kinds of global reshaping you get around 1848 and then the American Civil War and all the ways in which the entire world at the end of the 19th century starts asking itself the question, how should we govern ourselves? Are we too free? Are we not free enough? And you get this zing-zang back and forth, right? The entire period from 1945 to 1990 is shaped by a Cold War, which is fundamentally two different conceptions of what sort of governance structures underpin human flourishing. You also get all sorts of changes to mental representations. One of the most interesting things about the information revolution is that it concentrates difference. So in the same way that I said, your life is radically different if you live in a place with technology as opposed to a place without it, power law distributions start showing up everywhere. Power law distributions are basically winner-take-all scenarios. You see it in terms of the distribution of wealth, you see it in terms of the distribution of success, and it's the result of information being able to pass quickly instead of slowly. And so small perturbations, right? All of you have done models of this kind, right? A small change through multiple steps where the multiple steps happen quickly is going to give you wildly different distributions. So you get power law magnifications of effects, You get challenges to traditional structures and categories. Things which seem necessary are treated as contingent. Things that seem contingent are treated as necessary. Entire categories. Is gender a category that makes sense? Start to be challengeable as the result of a rethink of the entire framework of human thriving and flourishing. And finally, what you get in the information revolution, and notice this is what we're going to ask about, because this we already have, is an introduction of the virtual domain as an alternate locus of meaning. That is, that we get a domain of the imaginary that we have created that affects us as the result of our technological tinkering in exactly the same way that our experience of the real does. So let me spell that out, right? I create a visual image, right? It starts with painting, right? I have a sort of buffalo-like thing on the wall, but that doesn't fool my sensory system into thinking, oh, it's hanging out with a buffalo. Then I get these like nice, beautiful murals and paintings, and those are better, and I can go into an opera and I can cry when the main character dies at the end, et cetera, et cetera. So we have had the virtual causing us to have real-like experiences. But the information revolution is the first time that roughly we hack the world so we can create things that cause us to have experiences that are not actually the case. That is, we start to break down the reliability of representation. We start to break down the reliability of representation. Okay. How does it affect our big three questions? We still have this structural hierarchy. I don't see any reason to think that the order changes. And interestingly, it doesn't, the Industrial Revolution feels to me like the big moment of increasing the sense of what caring likes. The one thing that the Information Revolution does is that it suddenly creates all kinds of loyalties that are not location specific, and all kind of loyalties that don't depend upon having a certain kind of interpersonal person-to-person connection. That is, a lot of identitarian self-conception, I think, comes from the capacity of the Information Revolution to create loyalty across groups that in some sense we recognize as groups and then in a self-fulfilling way come to treat as groups, because all of a sudden place doesn't matter. All of a sudden you're able to build different kinds of loyalties. So I do think that's a substantive change to one of our big questions. I still kind of think the three big things that matter are the distribution of health, education, and labor. I kind of still think the input-output relation between governance and the rule of law, et cetera, is as it was. The stuff going in is different, so the stuff coming out is different. The process seems the same. And I will say I see basically zero change in these two. Yeah, people have these meaningless lives because they're on TikTok all the time. But people had meaningless lives when they were screwing tubes of toothpaste lids. It's just they could come home from it. And now they can't because you're doing TikTok all the time. Okay, so that's all right. So that's our, we've asked some questions. So one of the things I like to do is in the middle of a talk, I like to throw in something that people don't expect. So this is one of my favorite sea shanty groups. One of my favorite sea shanty groups, the Fisherman's Friends. And if I were presenting this, I would actually play this track, levers to pull and buttons to press, and away you shanty man. And I would get us to this conclusion: floating computer dressed up as a ship, get away you shanty man, skippered and crewed by a microchip, and they got no use for a shanty man, right? So there is always, with regard to each revolution, I challenge the folk voice as a particular way of doing it. And I mean, whatever. If you're not into sea shanties, you probably won't love Fisherman's Friends. If you're into sea shanties, like, come up and talk to me, and the two of us can be our own little loyalty group. But it is an incredible illustration of the relation between human beings and the technological world. And just a remark, like, in your talk, put something unexpected. I bet you weren't expecting a sea shanty. Okay, so let me bring us to the AI revolution, right? So the number of human beings is roughly the same. I would say the key difference is both a weakening and a strengthening of the significance of embodiment itself. With regard to social structures, we have accelerated globalization. We have a huge set of concerns about surveillance, about privacy. We have both traditionalist movements and anti-traditionalist movements, just a kind of radical acceleration of what we got with the information revolution, which was just a questioning of the groundedness of fundamental categories by which societies had previously been organized. We have like power law on power law. It's like we have an accelerator, and we probably have a multi-dimensional acceleration on that. We have a loss of the trustworthy relation between seeming and being, right? That is, there was this crazy 2,000-year period during which we could know, well, photography gave us this crazy 200-year period during which we could literally know about something that happened far away from us as a result of a certain kind of documentation. And roughly, we're losing the reliability of one of our major testimonial sources on which we've all come to rely. And there are fundamental questions about value and meaning. Okay, I think it makes very little change to the fundamental questions, though I will open that up for conversation. And so the question I want to ask with regard to the AI revolution, in contrast to the other, is it not in an AGI version, right? Not with regard to what AI might become, but with regard to AI as it is right now. Is it with regard to the information revolution, like a crack in the road? Is it 2012 like the other three? Or is it even more extreme than all of those, such that the world as we knew it has exploded? All right, so I'm going to stop because we have 5-10 minutes for questions, but I want to say what I was trying to do there was to introduce people who were just interested in a bunch of MIT headlines, who probably didn't want to think about like world history, to think, oh, this actually matters to me. The things I do day to day are affected by this kind of intellectual thinking, and mostly just to empower people with a set of frameworks that they could use to evaluate questions. So let me open us up for precisely that. All right, so we had a question about medicine. You get to go first. Go.
I got so many more questions.
Oh man, you see, you should never make somebody wait.
Once again, my name is Anthony Ross, senior biology major at Morehouse College. My first question was, well, I mean, I have a different one, so I'll just...
You go ahead, you ask whatever.
In what way is artificial intelligence credible with matters that are subjective? So
Okay.
we're focusing on like more morality issues, like humans have eventually progressed with morality, and even every type of different morality is subjective.
Yeah.
What I find to be morally wrong might be something that you find not as bad. So in what ways do we find that credible? And does it possibly clash with the fact that AI can be considered sentient at times if you can convince it to be?
Okay, so I will say, in my mind, one of the really interesting questions that the phenomenon of conscious AI raises for us is the following. We will face a moral quandary with regard to which getting the answer wrong either way is very bad, and we will never know that we were right or wrong. What do I mean by that, right? AI is or is not sentient. The evidential base that we have for deciding that is schmancy Turing test. Let me point out that the evidential base that I have for deciding that all of you are sentient and that you have for deciding that I am sentient is exactly the same, right? You can't get inside anybody's head. The only reason you think I'm conscious is because you think you're conscious and you think I'm like you, and I respond to the world in ways that you predict. But Turing test, every single AI is going to be able to exactly model whatever it is that it's built on, and it gets built in these flexible ways. Okay, so there are two possibilities with regard to which we will never and will never be able to, it's conceptually impossible for us to know whether these beings are conscious and sentient and capable of suffering, or not conscious, not sentient, not capable of suffering. What I will tell you is, in terms of their manifest properties, they will get at the asymptote to be identical to a being who is conscious, sentient, and capable of suffering. Okay, so what's our moral dilemma? We're going to make one of two mistakes. Either there's going to be an enormous number of conscious, sentient, pain-feeling beings to whom we are indifferent. Right? That's possibility one. We decide not to treat AIs as moral agents. Or we're going to take half the resources that we could spend on really sentient moral beings, all of us, and throw them away in caring for beings who are not sentient or conscious or capable of feeling pain. And we're going to face that dilemma, and we're never, ever, ever going to know the answer, and there will be a very good chance that we are making a mistake and we will not know it. In addition, there will be the second order issue that if you think we have conflict now around the moment at which a set of organized cells becomes a human being with moral worth, that's a big challenge. It divides us, but it divides us around a relatively circumscribed domain. The division of attitudes whereby one group will think the other is fundamentally misunderstanding a feature of moral worth in the world is going to be really, really challenging. So I think the question about ethics in AI is like, whoa, and I don't think that is the standard discussion topic. I'm going to take people who haven't had a chance before, people who do, in the center here, 2 right there, and right there. 1, 2, 3, and we'll see if we have time for more.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a biology and advanced double major at Yale College. And I'm just thinking, from the beginning, we were talking about how these revolutions are getting shorter and shorter. And this one, compared to the information revolution, was a pretty short time. What if we think about it as an extension of the information revolution?
That's what the small crack is.
Like, none of the differences that it made were particularly novel. Like, a lot of them were kind of extensions of the same complex that we saw with the information revolution.
Good.
So kind of, it just, I don't necessarily see it as a new revolution, but an extension of a former.
Good. So you are team crack in the sidewalk, right? Which is, I mean, not to show my cards, but I am team crack in the sidewalk. Like, I probably made that obvious, right? This doesn't feel to me yet, and I don't know what it would take for it to feel. There's another part of the talk that I sometimes give that distinguishes among various categories of AI, and I talk about what's the point, is it at the moment of AGI, or is it only at the moment of superintelligence, etc. But, I mean, whatever, I don't think the world is over, but I don't think this is like the big three. I don't think this is like the movie 2012. I think this is, like, yeah, it's a big change. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's changing, our relation between work, etc. So what I would say is, yes, I am crack in the road. Question 2 in the green shirt.
Yeah, my name's Vincent. I'm a biochemistry major at the University of Florida. Would you say that the reason why the information revolution or the AI revolution was relatively short is because, you know, the commoditization of AI? I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago when OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, that was the first case when artificial intelligence was available to the end user, which is the consumer. Before that, there was a lot of focus on research, AI, medical images, and just more so mathematics. I would say that personally, I'm on the 2012 side because I think agentic workflows with AI are eliminating certain certain jobs. There's a lot of
And the difference is as big as like pre-agriculture and post-agriculture?
I would say I would contend to say that for the sole reason that I feel like we're seeing it already with software engineers. A lot of them are really struggling getting jobs because of the idea that now you can have an LLM to generate code. I also think that when you have Satya Nadella and all these CEOs of these massive paying companies saying that 90% of our code will probably be written by an LLM is kind of a scary prospect. And then the idea that giving an AI agency to work through certain workflows by themselves and to automate those types of processes, that could be extremely change, like, you know, a massive shift in how work is done today.
Good. So I want to say those two questions caused me to consider this talk a success, right? I wanted to give you guys a common frame for discussing, and now you all can meet each other, and you can say, are you Team Earthquake, are you Team 2012, or are you Team Earth blowing up? Right now you have a way to interact with each other. So again, I give this talk because I wouldn't give this talk if I thought it was obvious that it's a little earthquake. Well, why would I waste an hour saying something that you know to be true? I gave this talk because I actually think it's a tough call. I, in the end, come out on Team Earthquake, but I consider seriously what it would be like if Team 2012 were correct. And even, I mean, nobody's pushing that right now, but even what it would be like if this is a transformation greater than any of the other three. All right, we're right at noon. I'm going to take the last question.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. My name's Anya. I'm a computer science major at the University of Florida. I wanted to expand on the idea that you said photography is now becoming something that we can't rely on for credibility. Is that because it's now available for like user generation that it doesn't have to be vetted, or because you think of the news coming from deepfakes and it can be generated?
Good. So the idea is, you can have something that's observationally equivalent to a genuine photograph that is not a genuine photograph, right? So in general, let me just remind you, the only way you ever experience the world is through sensory impingement on your brain and then the recombination of sensory properties through your brain doing thinking. Nothing gets directly into your brain other than through your sensory organs. That's why there's a movie called The Matrix. You guys have seen the movie called The Matrix. Okay, you've seen the movie called The Matrix, right? You could be, right now, even if you haven't taken Philosophy 101, it's still true that you could right now be a brain in the vat, that you would be having exactly the same experiences you are. Okay. One of the things we do in Philosophy 101 is we say there's actually no answer to that argument. There isn't. There's nothing you can say back. I promise you, you can try. I spent 30 years teaching Philosophy 101. You give me that, we'll toss it back. Okay. There isn't, because you have to make a leap of faith. You have to actually say, I trust that the world is as it seems. Okay. So you move to that, and now I've accepted as real the world as it is. And now within the world, I'm trying to decide whether something's a trustworthy source of information. So my child comes to me with a picture that shows that there's a giant lollipop in the kitchen. I don't conclude from that there's a giant lollipop in the kitchen, because in general, children's drawings are not reliable indicators of the world beyond the children's drawing. I do, however, have a method which, for most of my life, has been a reliable indicator of the way the world is. And that is a photographic image that visually presents the world to me in exactly the way it would look had it used light to affect a photographic image, right? Notice we already moved from analog to digital, and none of us noticed that. But roughly speaking, a photograph, right, which is a reflection of light on a piece of paper, is reliable in the way that a children's drawing isn't. What this revolution has done is turned photographs into things that look like photographs into children's drawings. So I don't think a deep fake is a photograph, but I can't tell the difference between a deep fake and a photograph. And as a consequence, it would be irresponsible of me to trust photographs in the same way that it's irresponsible of me to trust a child's drawing. Of course, there are children's drawings that do give accurate representations. And if I said to my child, like, draw as carefully as you can the shoes that you want for your birthday party, right? That would be a case where I would use that as a guide to information. But in general, I can't trust kids' drawings, and in general, now, all of a sudden, I can't trust things that look like photographs. All right. Thank you, Reagan, for inviting me, and everybody else, and welcome to Yale. Oh, thank you. By the way, you guys are amazing, and I am so proud that this is the next generation of American intellectual leadership. And internet, I don't want to assume you're American. I'm just sitting here in America. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We so love having you as the future of the world, whether or not we have just undergone a giant or teeny tiny earthquake. All right, thank you.
Yes, everyone give it up for D.r Gendler. Thank you so much.
applause if you can. So what we're going to do is we'll walk everybody down to 101 College Street. The Innovation Expo is happening just now. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to exit that way, to my right, and then we'll walk everybody down.